JB Cycles with an update on November the 21st. So today I will look at some medium-term cycles. That's say 8-week cycles to 25-week cycles. And I saw this video on YouTube today, and that kind of reminded me of some cycles. I'll put a link in the description to this one. So let's have a look. In the video from Lars, there was mentioned 80 trading day cycle, and that's I wouldn't call it a cycle, but an oscillation that I have been following for quite a while. And also Terry Laundry called this the ringing cycle. And looking back, it consists of 4 of my 4-week cycles, so it's a 16-week cycle. But let's say, I have to mention, I like to operate with fixed cycles. That's my experience. We have fixed cycles, and they work over very long periods, and there should be some kind of fundamental force behind these cycles. And then you have market oscillations, and often the oscillations correlate with the cycles, but sometimes it gets messy and they don't correlate, and you get all confused. So I think this video could just bring more confusion than clarity, but let's sum it up. So 4 of these smaller cycles make up 80 trading day cycle. But then here around the US election we had disturbance, and we shifted by 1 cycle, and we had a nice rhythm. Also my 4-week cycle, it worked for many years, also before the COVID crash, and it was all perfect. After understanding what was going on here, you know, it settled back. But then we came over here early this year when we broke the long trend line, and we rolled over to a bear market. We also had a kind of a disturbance here, as you see, and there I switched my focus over to this shorter oscillation of 2 of my cycles, and that kind of worked. But then around here in April-May, there was a shift in my 4-week cycle. It changed, it stretched, and then we had this strange oscillation that I call a collapsing oscillation, where the lowest low is in the middle. So you collapse, and then you have the cycle or oscillation low, which is a higher low, and that's a kind of a bullish setup. Collapse or capitulation is often bullish, for a while at least. And then, okay, I understood the 4-week cycle had changed, and it worked perfect over the summer into, and then we had some trouble in September, October. Here my 4-week cycle, it contracted. So it's expanded here and it contracted here. So now we have a new rhythm. It's hard to find, but as you see, this ringing cycle is maybe back in play, and you know, we are approaching the top of it perhaps. So that's 1 cycle or oscillation. You know, here I had my old 4-week cycle, and here was the new one, and now we have maybe a 3rd one. Well, maybe I'll come back to that one. But what I like to do when we have this disturbances or shifts in the cycle, I look at the previous cycles, and I perhaps get more clarity. And you know, we're here on Sunday, and looking back at the 2 previous cycles, you see those had some kind of a high here a couple of days ahead, and a low a bit further ahead. So maybe we are repeating this pattern, but if the market is getting more bearish, we should see some leftward translation. That means making a earlier top, so that we have more time for a downtrend. So being bearish, I would kind of hope for this left translation, and that we won't make any higher highs here, but start to roll over. I saw in Lars' video mentioning it was a 64 trading and 128 trading day cycle. The 128 trading day cycle, that's a 25-week cycle, and that's a cycle, yeah, that one made me rich 20 to 15 years ago, and it works so perfect, but then it stopped working around 10 years ago. But I'm still kind of following it, just for fun. You know, it's not at all working perfect. Sometimes you see it seems to have some, it works, but yeah, I'm not using it, but I'm keeping an eye on it, and look, maybe that's kind of explaining why we are doing this rally right now. I don't know. So I don't like working with composite cycles, adding them together. I'm trying to find the dominant cycle and using oscillators, momentum indicators, trying to find how do they correlate with what. So see, also this one has a low. There's so many things pointing to a low around February, March, April. You know, this one, and we had, as I showed, the ringing cycle also sometime next year in the winter. So if we look at the 10-week cycle, you know, that's a tricky one. The 10-week cycle works really, really nice. Often it makes up a 20-week cycle or a 40-week cycle, but I also see signs of a 30-week cycle. So it's more like this oscillation can end up in different. It can add up in 20, 30, or 40-week cycles. Right now we are stretching this cycle. You know, this top is a bit later than projected. Is that bullish or what? I thought this rally was just like this one, that we would continue the downtrend, but the CPI data made this a bigger degree rally or oscillation. So if this 10-week cycle still is working, you know, if we pull back into December, that could make a really bullish setup for the next cycle, unless it's very left translated, and then we go down into March like this. That might happen. What I also have seen from historical data, this oscillation is really working well, going very long back in time, but sometimes you see a phenomenon that I also see in my 4-week cycle, and that's a merging of two cycles into one bigger cycle. So we could make a top around the projected low and then turn down. And in essence, that's kind of the same as I showed here, a very bullish right translated cycle and then a very bearish left translated cycle. That would make up kind of an inverted cycle or a merging cycle. So not easy to say what's going to happen there. Also I mentioned, yeah, you can have a 30-week cycle. There's a case saying this is at play in Norway. You have a late low here, but it works really nice. This was kind of should be a higher low, but it works really nice for Norway. 30 weeks, and it projects the low in mid-February. So a lot to keep track on, but just have to watch short-term indicators and take 1 week at a time.